Welcome and good morning. I'm Josh Cogliati, today's worship associate. Today, Daniel Schwen, Larry Vanderplas, and I bring you this service from the church's sanctuary. So welcome this morning, this day, and this opportunity to be together online. Our announcements are, I would first like everyone to sign into the chat box to the right of your screen. This will let us know who is joining us. We will be having sorrows, concerns, and joys before the sermon. At that time, we'll read those that came in earlier by email. And after that, any other sorrows, concerns, and joys to be posted in the chat box will be read and a candle lit. When you share one in the chat box, please first indicate it if it's a sorrow, concern, or joy, so we don't miss any of them coming in, late with a bit of lag. Please feel free to post them starting with after the chalice lighting. Finally, before we get started, we need to mention how we stay afloat. Later in the service, when we are going to have an offertory time, there are several ways you can do this. On the screen, there is a photo of our website showing you where you can make your offering. You can go to the church website and click on the Give button in the upper right-hand corner between Search and Contact. When you click on this button, you can pay via PayPal. There is a box where you can note what your donation is for. You are also still welcome to send your pledge or other donation by mail to the church's P.O. Box number, which you can find at our website. I have two other announcements. On Tuesday at noon, we will have a family worship service, which will be a half an hour long. Please RSVP to dree@idahofallsuu.org for a Zoom link if you wish to join us. And for the following service and for July service, we will be sending you links to other UU services, including GA and other UU congregations around the country. We will now move into the sacred time of worship. As I ring the peace bowl 3 times, take deep breaths and relax so we can move into worship. For this moment in time, let go of your anxieties, fears, and worries. Be in this moment. We will begin our service with our prelude. We are all connected.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
I think nature's imagination is so much greater than man's. He's never gonna let us relax.
We live in an in-between universe where things change alright, but according to patterns, rules, or as we call them, laws of nature.
I'm this guy standing on a planet. Really, I'm just a speck. Compared with a star, the planet is just another speck. To think about all of this, to think about the vast emptiness of space. Billions and billions of stars, billions and billions of specks.
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff, and we are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Across the sea of space, the stars
are other suns. We have traveled this way before, and there is much to be learned.
We're all connected to each other biologically, to the earth chemically, to the rest of the universe atomically.
I find it elevating and exhilarating to discover that we live in a universe which permits the evolution of molecular machines as intricate and subtle as we.
I know that the molecules in my body are traceable to phenomena in the cosmos. That makes me want to grab people in the street and say, have you heard this?
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
There's this tremendous mass of waves all over in space, which is the light bouncing around the room, going from one thing to the other, and it's all really there, really there. But you gotta stop and think about it, about the complexity to really get the pleasure. It's all really there, really there. The inconceivable nature of nature. To think about all of this, to think about the vast emptiness of space. There's billions and billions of stars, billions and billions of specks.
The beauty of a living thing is not the atoms that go into it, but the way those atoms are put together. The cosmos is also within us. We're made of star stuff. We are a way for the cosmos to know itself.
Across the sea of space, the stars are other suns. We have traveled this way before, and there is much to be learned.
Since we are not all together, I will read our church covenant for us all. Love is the spirit of this community, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. We will now be lighting our chalice. If you have a candle or chalice available, please light yours along with me. Flame of fire, spark of the universe that warmed our ancestral hearth, agent of life and death, symbol of truth and freedom, we strive to understand ourselves and our earthly home. The womb of stars embraces us, remnants of their fiery furnaces pulse through our veins. We are of the stars, the dust of the explosions cast across space. We are of the earth. We breathe and live in the breath of ancient plants and beasts. Their cells nourish the soil. We build our communities on their harvest of gifts. Our fingers trace the curves, carved in clay and stone, by forebearers unknown to us. We are a part of the great circle of humanity gathered around the fire, the hearth, the altar. We gather anew this day to celebrate our common heritage. May we recall in gratitude all that has given us birth. And now we'll listen to, and you're welcome to sing along with the PDFs of the music that was emailed late. I apologize. For 343, A Fire Mist and a Planet. This is a very special time in our congregation where each of us has an opportunity to share major events in our lives, our joys, our concerns, and our sorrows, so we can all be uplifted by our UU community. As Daniel Schwen reads the sorrows, concerns, and joys that were emailed to us, I will light a candle. And please feel free to put them in the chat box now, designated if it is a sorrow, concern, or joy. Also, because of the ways our lives are being touched by loss and grief during this global pandemic, we will light a red COVID candle for the deaths of those people across the United States and the world who have died from the SARS-CoV-2 virus.
We received one joy by Ron Goyne. Our grandson-in-law and granddaughter informed us that we will become great-grandparents in December. This will be our first grandchild. Victoria McDonald has a joy in the chat box. I'm thankful for being back in Ketchikan. It's a cool rainy summer and a polite massive black bear roams in the yard. Life continues. And Victoria McDonald also remarked that it's Father's Day and wishes Happy Father's Day in honor of fathers. And I believe that's it. Oh, Elizabeth Cogliati has a concern. Clarissa sprained her hip Friday night and is on crutches.
We light one more candle for those sorrows, concerns, and joys we hold in our hearts and are not ready to share at this time. Know we lift up our love for you, and we are all in this together. And now for Larry Vanderplas, Darwin and Dinosaurs.
Good morning. Once again, I have the pleasure to talk to you about an interesting subject. In the year 1750, Archbishop James Ussher calculated that God created the world on Sunday, October 23, 4004 BC. That fit well with established doctrine at the time, and it was soon accepted as fact. By the late 18th century, however, a number of people began to question the simplicity of that explanation based on what they saw around them. One of them was James Hutton. He was a very intelligent man. He made a number of field trips throughout Scotland in the 1780s, examining geological formations at Glen Tilt, Sickert Point, and Jetburg, and concluded the only way to explain the formation was through long and continuous processes. And in turn that implied Earth was very old. He presented his ideas to the Royal Society of Scotland at Edinburgh in 1785, and the society published his dissertation, Theory of the Earth, 3 years later. This study was difficult to read, using long paragraphs where a few words would do. Fortunately for Hutton, his friend John Playfair published Huttonian Theory of the Earth in 1802, shortly after Hutton's death. Hutton's idea, Earth was very old. The same continuous geological processes that shaped Earth in the past were still active today. And the idea that deeper rocks are older, as newer sediments, the result of erosion, are deposited on the surface. The first quarter of the 19th century was a turning point in the history of geology. It became increasingly clear Earth was older than anyone had ever imagined. Not thousands of years old, but millions. As geologists were pushing back Earth's age, paleontologists were making their own startling discoveries. In 1822, Gideon Mantell, a doctor in Sussex, found fossil teeth that looked like those of an iguana. But if scaled to size, the animal would have been over 30 feet long. In 1824, the geologist William Buckland announced the discovery of giant bones in Oxfordshire that clearly did not belong to any living animal. Obviously, these animals no longer existed, and their fossils forced scientists to wrestle with the concept of extinction, an idea that did not fit with traditional histories of life on Earth. Why would God create species only to have them disappear? The term dinosaur is from the Greek, meaning fearfully great lizard. First coined by Richard Owen in a scientific paper published in 1842. From their first discovery, dinosaurs fascinated laymen and scientists alike. Terrifying and mysterious, they once ruled the world, but then vanished. What did it mean? While Buckland and Mantell were discovering the fossils of giant land reptiles, a young woman named Mary Anning was finding fossils of prehistoric marine reptiles. Near Lyme Reaches on the south coast of England, Mary and her family gathered shells and fossils and sold them to tourists to make extra money. They were very poor. Mary was the inspiration of the rhyme, she sells seashells on the seashore. But she did more than just collect seashells. She discovers the first ichthyosaur and plesiosaur. She was well known in paleontological circles. In the early 19th centuries, dinosaurs and extinct marine reptiles played a key role in the development of evolutionary ideas. Because their discovery raised many questions and pointed scientists in new directions. If, for example, species could go extinct, did that mean new species could come into existence? And if so, how? Few names are as famous as Darwin, a naturalist from a well-to-do family. He was at one point headed for the clergy. He ended up on a 5-year voyage around the world. It changed his life. Born into the new geology, Darwin looked at the world in a new way. a world years in the making and still undergoing changes, a dynamic stage upon which individual organisms act out fleeting existences. From the rainforest of South America to the Galapagos Islands, Darwin saw firsthand the variation between individuals and the desperate fight for survival. He also saw the close relationship between species that lived nearby and similar relationship across time between fossils, animals, and their modern counterparts. Facts that made him doubt the fixity of species. In 1842, Darwin wrote a brief overview of his theory and then expanded it into a longer sketch in 1844. Recognizing its importance, he left instructions with his wife for its publication in the event of his death. Darwin then spent the next 10 years working in his collection from the voyage, publishing a number of important books and papers on his geological and zoological discoveries, before finally returning to the species question once he completed his work on barnacles in 1854. Charles Robert Darwin was born on February 12, 1809, in Shrewsbury, England. His father, Robert W. Darwin, was a successful physician. Darwin's mother, Susanna, died when he was 8 years old. After that, his sisters raised him. From 1818 to 1825, he attended Shrewsbury School. It was boring. Darwin was more interested in the outdoors. At an early age, he developed a passion for collecting shells, minerals, and insects. But he was not a good student. This upset his father. In 1825, his father sent Darwin to Edinburgh to study medicine, but he was not cut out to be a doctor. Watching surgery done without painkillers was gruesome in those days. In desperation, his father sent him to Cambridge. It was there that he met John Stevens Henslow, professor of botany, who would become his mentor. In 1831, the British Admiralty commissions HMS Beagle, under the command of Captain Robert Fitzroy, to conduct surveys of the South American coast. The voyage presented a rare opportunity for a naturalist to accompany the expedition, and Henslow recommended Darwin. Fitzroy warned Darwin that space was tight, but nothing prepared him for what he found. The Beagle was 90 feet long and only 24 feet wide, with a beam of only 3 feet. This ship carried more than 70 men, and in order to sleep at night, Darwin had to remove a drawer to make room for his feet. No privacy, no shower, and no change of clothes. It must have been messy. On December 27, the ship started its 5-year adventure, and the first Darwin learned was the agony of seasickness. Finding it impossible to stand up without becoming seasick, Darwin wondered if he made a serious mistake. On January 16, 1832, the Beagle reached the Cape Verde Islands, 300 miles off the African coast. Happy to be on dry land, he saw for the first time the lush tropical flora he had read about. On February 16, 1832, they crossed the equator. And on February 28, Darwin took his first steps in South America. For the next year, the Beagle made his way down the coast, conducting surveys, taking depth soundings, and drawing charts, while Darwin collected insects, seashells, and rocks. He did not put the pieces together until he returned to England, but it was there, in the heart of South America, that Darwin made his first important discoveries. Lost in the brilliance of Brazil's rainforest, surrounded by parrots, butterflies, and orchids, Darwin saw not only the incredible luxuriance and diversity of the Amazon, but also the harsh reality of life within it. He saw a wasp hunt down a spider and drag off a spider, a fight to the death between two tiny monsters, a stark example of nature's first law: kill or be killed. Everywhere he looked was a ruthless struggle for survival. Vampire bats attacked horses in the dead of night. An unstoppable column of army ants triggered panic through the forest. Throughout the forest. It was Darwin's first real glimpse of the never-ending battle between the hunter and the hunted. In September at Bahia Blanca, south of Rio de Janeiro, Darwin excavated several huge skeletons, the remains of giant prehistoric beasts. One was a giant sloth, similar to the present-day sloth, but much bigger. And there was also bones of a German armadillo. Darwin marveled at their close relationship to modern species. He wrote in his journal, "This wonderful relationship in the same continent between the dead and the living, I have no doubt. Hereafter throws more life on the appearance of organic beings on our earth and their disappearance from it than other class of facts." In October, the ship returned to Montevideo, where Darwin received the second volume of Charles Lyell's Principles of Geology. Lyell argued that our Earth was much older than most people imagined, and that the same geological processes observed in modern times had been at work for millions of years. He said the world had come about through causes now in operations, not catastrophic events like the biblical flood. In fact, by the 1830s, all geologists accepted that the world was ancient, but no one could guess just how old. The Beagle's crew spent the second year of the voyage, 1833, surveying the east coast of South America, while Darwin explored the interior on horseback. In September, he fell seriously ill and barely got back to Valparaiso before collapsing for a month, unable to get out of bed. On November 21, the ship returned to Chiloé. On an excursion across the island, Darwin observed 3 volcanoes billowing smoke. And on January 19, 1834, he saw Mount Osorno erupt. It's 3 in the morning. Darwin and the rest of the crew stood on deck to watch the explosions of rock, fire, and lava, so bright it lit up the sky. On February 20, 1835, Darwin once again experienced nature's terrifying power. While exploring the island Valdivia, the ground shook as an earthquake struck the west coast. 200 miles north at Conception, the cathedral was left in ruins, and a 20-foot tidal wave hit the city, carrying a schooner into the center of town. Fires blazed everywhere. Among the wreckage, however, Darwin made another important discovery. The beds of dead mosses were now above the high tide mark. The ground had raised several feet, proof that Lyell was right. Indeed, over millions of years, the rise and fall, creating and destroying mountains, and reshaping the world in small steps. The ship again made its way to Valparaiso, and Darwin set out for the Andes with guides and mules. Making his way to Santiago, he pushed on through the mountains to Mendoza, Argentina, shivering at 13,000 feet and fighting against thin air, freezing winds, and icy clouds. One night, in a small village, he experienced an attack of the Benchuga, the great big bug of the pampas. Before sucking, they are thin, but afterwards become round and bloated with blood. And in a state they are easily crushed. It is now known that Benchuga can transmit Chagas disease, a debilitating, potentially fatal disease that causes symptoms similar to many of those Darwin reported after he returned to England. His lifelong health problems may have started in Argentina. Turning northwest, he crossed through Asplata Pass and stumbled across fossilized trees, a petrified forest at the top of the world. The trees once must have stood on the coast, when the ocean had come up to the foot of the mountains, buried when the continent sank, then thrust to the top when the continent rose up again. Judging from the rock that had crumpled like paper, Darwin was slowly working out the puzzle. He fired off a letter to Henslow about his absurd and incredible discoveries. Although the Beagle only stayed 5 weeks in the Galapagos Islands, it turned out to be an important stop for Darwin. He visited as many islands in that group as he could and noticed the difference in birds that he encountered. In 1836, the Beagle finally returned to England, back to England. There must have been several wagon loads full of fossils and collectibles that were carefully guided to the Darwin home. In 1839, Charles Darwin, at age 30, married Emma Wedgwood, a first cousin. It was a happy marriage. Darwin's theory of the origin of species was finally published in 1858 after many delays. It proved that events written in the Bible were wrong and not reliable. The earth we live on is billions of years old, not just 6,000 plus years. Preachers called it blasphemy then, and arguments take place to this day. The facts are rooted in a solid foundation. When this isolation is over with and we can travel again, I recommend visiting the Charles Darwin Museum, which is located in the Camden district of London, England. I appreciate your attention and conclude my speech. Thank you. Is that right? So I go out.
Thank you, Larry. And now let us begin the offertory. We have some technical difficulties. If you decide to send a check, please send it to the UCIF's PO box or send it to our PayPal account. And now for our closing hymn, number 298, Wake Now My Senses.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with the web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, each out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
I will now extinguish our chalice with the following words. If you wish, join me in reciting our reading. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Out of the stars in their flight, out of the dust of eternity, here have we come. Stardust and starlight, mingling throughout time and through space. Out of the stars we have come, up from time. Out of the stars have we come. Time out of time before time, in the vastness of space. Earth spun to orbit the sun. Earth with the thunder of mountains new born, the boiling of seas. Earth warmed by sun, lit by sunlight. This is our home. Out of the stars have we come. Mystery hidden in mystery, back through all time. Mystery rising from rocks in the storm and the sea. Out of the stars, rising from rocks in the sea, kindled by sunlight on earth, arose life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Ponder with awe. Out of the sea to the land, out of the shallows came ferns. Out of the sea to the land, up from darkness to light, rising to walk and to fly. Out of the sea trembled life. Ponder this thing in your heart. Life up from the sea. Eyes to behold, throats to sing, mates to love. Life from the sea, warmed by the sun, washed by rain. Life from within, giving birth, rose to love. This is the wonder of time. This is the marvel of space. Out of the stars swung the earth. Life upon earth rose to love. This is the marvel of life, rising to see and to know. Out of your heart, cry wonder. Sing that we live. Before we play our postlude at the end of the service, I invite you to participate in the virtual coffee hour, which begins after the postlude. The link to this was sent out earlier.